everybody. We wanted to welcome you to our Counterpoise podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Samantha Adams, and I'm joined by my other two co hosts who are going to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Malik Foster. I'm a co-host for Counterpoints Podcast.
And what's going on, everyone? I'm Ever Stevenson, one of your third co-hosts as well for Counterpoise Podcast. And today we have an interesting topic. This is also from an article that was written by Esquire magazine, and it took a look at the finances of individual males as well as four females who were making different ranges of incomes. We have people who were making $1 million or plus a year to two or 300,000 a year, as well as around 50 to 80,000, I believe, and some individuals who were more at the poverty line at the time. Keeping in mind that these articles were written in 2016, it just spoke to the different vast ways in which they look at their approach to money, their money management skills, and we also looked at some of the things like their lifestyles, family members that they may have. Are they married? Where do they live? Do they have children? Things of that nature, to see what their education levels were, to see how all of those factors may have played a role into their lifestyles. And as well as when some of those situations may have changed, how that affected other individuals' lifestyles. So we're going to get ready to jump into this in just a second. I know we have some articles that we want to pull up here down in a little bit. So I don't know if Malik wanted to jump into that real fast. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, guys, can y'all see my screen? So we have the four different men we're going to analyze first with the four different incomes about the lives that they can afford, right? So we're going to give you guys a breakdown of their finances, investors' incomes, their family and childcare, and any of the general stuff like taxes and stuff like that. So, we have the four different men here, each at different income levels. So $1 million, which would be considered the top 1%, where you would be considered wealthy, where you're making $1 million a year, as it stood in 2016, right? As Ever mentioned earlier, and then 250,000 annually is which you would consider upper class, and then 53,000 would be considered the median, which is about the average for Americans, and then the poverty line below that 53,000 mark. Okay, so I know we focus on Black people here. The statistics for Black Americans would be a little different, but this is for the average Americans, right? So that's where the numbers are coming from here. So we can give a breakdown of Mr. Tim Nugent. He's 35 years old. He makes a annual salary of $1 million. What I noticed about him is that number one, he doesn't have a mortgage. His house is paid off. He's pretty happy with his investments. He's always thinking about more money, right?
Also, I noticed too, Malik, he
Go ahead.
it mentioned that how, like you say, when they talked about the budget and how he like says he tracks every penny. One of the other things I think he mentions in his article as well is that he has a budget up for like the next 5 years as to how they look to invest their money and the things that they want to do in managing their money. That, as well as the fact that he just recently had a child a year ago, and he's roughly at one of those higher incomes like we were talking about, though.
Yeah.
And one last factor too, that he speaks about giving. You know what I'm saying? And that's something big too, because I think coming up, how a lot of us may have been raised, is that we're taught to, to be givers. You know what I'm saying? They know that you're blessed because, you know what I'm saying, your biggest blessing is being able to bless others. So I think that's big to see that that's something that they prescribe to.
Right. So what people really don't know, like sometimes you have to give to receive, and giving back is also a benefit from a tax perspective. I know we're going to kind of get more into that a little later with some of these people, but that also can give people who are wealthy tax breaks as well. You want to discuss that with your certified public accountant and your tax professional. I am not a tax professional. Just a disclaimer right there.
None of us are. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, exactly. But
um,
but
but real quick, Malik, before you go on to the next thing about taxes, one thing I found interesting amongst all of these people is how much money they spend in groceries, right? Like they spend these wide ranges of money on groceries per month. Like for example, with Mr. Nguyen here, him and his family of three spend $1,200 a month. Now, mind you, his child is 9 months. So she's probably just now getting introduced to regular food, people food, if she has been, right? She easily could still be.
I go to occasional nice restaurant here and there,
That's true, but that averages out to about $300 a week in groceries. Um, and so for some people that might be a lot of money in food, but also too depends on the type of food, where the grocery shopping, what's the cost of food in the area in which they live. So remember, like he said, this article did come out in 2016, but those factors are always going to play a part, right? Like if I call my mom who's in another state, the cost of fish is going to be way less than it is here where I live, because she lives on the coast. So, there's certain things like that that have to be considered when you're talking about food and things like that, and also too how much they eat out. He doesn't say, oh, he does. He says that they mainly eat at home. So for them to spend that much money, it's $300 a week in groceries. So just keep in mind that for some people that's a lot of money, but for others it's not.
right.
I also wonder too with this, because if we scroll down a little bit, when we talk, he talks about one thing that you want but can't afford, and it's two things. We also see that he says, one thing that his family needs but can't afford. He said he can reasonably afford anything, but the thing that he wants but can't afford is to retire his parents. You know what I'm saying? And so that they can be independent and live their lives. And I think I wonder though too, does that include maybe, that he has his family with him? You feel me? Because if they're all living in one home together, that could maybe account for you understand what I'm saying? Maybe that food budget as well. And maybe take into consideration why he might want to say, let me hurry up and figure out a way to get them together so that I can get them their own little stuff. You know what I mean? Now that I'm getting it like this now. And trying to build up for
Well, he does mention their debts, right? So they must have some. He has his own obligations and debts and things he has to take care of. So their obligation debts might be outside of the extra money he has to spare right now. So he and their debt might be at a certain amount, which he mentions in the article here, to where he can't fully pay it off all at once, to just have them just relax and not work and not do anything right now. That's what I gather from it. But of course, he could have been a little bit more detailed, but about it. But I think that's where he's getting at. Like the debts are kind of high. I don't have enough money, extra money outside of what I'm already dealing with my business, my own family, and all that, and his taxes and all that stuff he has to pay to retire his family where they don't have to work anymore.
I also want to draw attention to one last thing is when he talks about his credit cards, he says like he only has one card and it's cash for points. And then he says like, he charges everything and then pays it off at the end of the month. Now, I think that's critical from the standpoint of too, when we're talking about just like, trying to maintain your finances and things like that, it helps twofold from being able to like track your expenses to say, okay, what am I spending? You know what I'm saying? In a month to month basis. Um, if you have it all on one card and have the ability to put it all on one card. And then two, then you also get the benefit of, again, the protection that you may have from your credit card company if there's any type of fraud or anything like that that goes through, or charges that shouldn't be there. As well as here, he mentions that he gets cash for points. So he can also cash in his points and receive money back from that card. And that might help with him, being able to kind of get paid for doing the things that he was going to naturally do anyhow. So I think that's another way that you kind of look at people being resourceful in the way in which they're budgeting, they're spending their money, and I think that's something that's something that you're afforded when you're able to have an established credit. So that's why I think credit is one thing that people have to make sure that they kind of be mindful of when you're trying to build your wealth.
Right. That's definitely a benefit financially, the cash for points credit cards. I think he does a lot of things in the financial realm that speaks volumes, and that we all can learn lessons here. He doesn't even have that much debt, as mentioned in the article, less than $10,000 in debt, and debt is a really big concern for people today, right? Especially the high student loan debt, high credit card debt. Those are the two things that people struggle with. And he's sitting on $1 million annually, and he has less than $10,000 in debt. And there's a lot of people that don't make as much money, or way less than half than what he has, and they have way more than $10,000 in debt. So that's definitely something to really look at. And last note that I definitely want to mention as far as the financial aspect with him is that what age does he wants to retire? It's pretty interesting, that he said he'll always be working. Now that he's doing his real estate business and other businesses, he feels as though he can work until he's 90. So he's highly motivated to continue working. He enjoys what he's doing, and he's just living his life to the fullest, and he's loving it. That's what it appears to me from analyzing the things that he wrote and broke it down. You have any more comments on Mr. Tim?
I do. One last thing that I love
the child hearing.
I do love that he broke down like that, and they put that in quotations in bold. Like, I've been broke before, had to refinance my house to pay my employees. I've been, through all of that, and that was me worried, and I think that's something big, because I think sometimes we realize it's sometimes when you watch entrepreneurs or other individuals who are really able to win at a high level, we've seen that a lot of times their motivation comes from failure, like they said, is part of that success, or being down in a sense, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's big, because I think, if you despise, you know what I'm saying, having to be down, and you get an opportunity, I think it speaks to like how he's taking advantage of that, how he uses that to be his motivation, is what I'm taking from that. You know what I'm saying? And it shows that he's had to make sacrifices for it, even refinancing his home in order to, keep things afloat. He had to put it all on the line, which is his home, things of that nature. And I think that sometimes you have to see that type of level of commitment from individuals in order to receive the type of lifestyle, the type of blessings that he's able to have.
I have a little bit of pushback about that. He said that he's been broke before because he had to refinance his house. But, some people would say that that's not broke. That might be struggle, but not broke, because he at least had a house that he could refinance. He still had the credit so that he could refinance. Like, the things that he was able to do in order to find his way out of that situation, he still had that. And there's many people out there that are considered broke, and they can't do that. They don't have that ability. They don't have a house. They don't have the credit. They don't have those resources. Also, too, it's something that they don't really talk about in here, but you kind of see a running theme, is investments, right? Like, when you're talking about investments in general, like, you do see that many of the people that are over a certain tax bracket do, in fact, have investments. However, what you don't see is how they invest, right? You do see, a lot of them have real estate, things like that, which is great because real estate creates generational wealth. We've talked about that before here on the show, but like you don't see what they're saying about stocks and things like that that they may have. One thing that I did want to point out, it's just an observation that I have, is that typically speaking, and it's not true for everybody, but generally speaking, the higher the tax bracket, the more aggressive they are in their stocks. So, I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there, just so I can just, make that.
Okay. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to point out with this guy before we move on to the other individuals is that his plan for kids, right? He has the college plan. He got an attorney, which you should do when you're trying to set up money for your kids, and as far as trusts go, wills go, and all those other things. It's highly recommended that you seek counsel, experts in these fields to assist you, right? I know that it does cost money, but it's not something that a lot of people can't afford to have done, some of this work, because your children are important. So it's important that you invest in their future as well. And you can kind of see here that he doesn't want his children to be spoiled. So he wanted the expert, his attorney here, to draft up documents so the children won't just have all this money without them earning it in some type of way. So I really like that about this guy, this wealthy guy. It's really important that your kids still learn the meaning of hard work. So I just wanted to point that out. Do
Absolutely.
I have
I'm glad
anything
you
else
did
that I
that.
want to kind of say on him before we kind of move on to the next person?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did that because I think that's one of the biggest struggles that I think a lot of people face when they have children who don't have to kind of aggressively go after the things that they had to, and they kind of have a disconnect where it's like, like, why don't you understand, or you don't, you know what I'm saying, you just don't get it type of mentality. And with them, it's like, hey, we have these goal lines set for you, where it's like, if you do these things that we know to be things that we think that will help you become, more successful in society, then you'll be able to unlock, more and more access to being able to do those things a little easier for yourself. And I think that's a beautiful way to motivate, as well as teach, hard work and ethics, and to allow your child to make a decision. You know what I mean? Because again, if your child's the type of child to be one that is not motivated by the money or the things like that, and they can just be internally motivated, then they might not necessarily need the other things in the world. They can be doing something like a job where, let's say maybe a social work or something like that, where you're giving a lot to others, you feel what I'm saying, and not necessarily receiving the most pay for it. But the way that you feel by helping another person get out of a bad situation is enough reward for you. You know what I mean? So I think that allows them to make that choice. But you know what I mean? And if they want to be ambitious, they can unlock all of the tools that their parents have left for them.
Yeah, just kind of piggyback off of that. I do like the fact that they teach their children how to have value in the thing, right? Because if you are constantly just giving something, then you're not really going to appreciate it. But if you're teaching your kids to volunteer and give out in the community, then you're more likely going to teach them how to appreciate, their circumstance and where they are, and the value, there's the space that they're in, especially too if they are required to get a certain GPA. If when you're required to get and maintain a certain GPA, for some kids, school comes easy, but for some kids, school does not come easy. And the thing about that is there's no amount of money that's going to make school come easy or hard for a person, right? It is what it is. And so when somebody's really working hard to maintain a GPA and things like that, they learn the value in that, and they appreciate that hard work that they put in, because nobody can do it but you. So I do want to just go ahead and piggyback off of that, because I do think that that is a is a great thing, a value to instill in children, because there's a lot of people out here walking around that have no values. And so in order to continue to grow not just your children as being great members of society, you also want you want that good stuff to rub off. Because I mean, remember, they at the beginning, he said that him and his wife, they dedicate 6% of their income to charities, right? Because they're a giving family. And so I think it's important to recognize the importance in that.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
This person.
Yeah, I agree. So we got our next person here. There's about a $750,000 drop off. He's a real estate agent in Miami. So another common theme I noticed amongst the wealthy people is real estate. The wealthier people, the upper class people, the wealthy people is real estate. So they're all into real estate, and that's very interesting. And they tend to not have that many kids either. Maybe one or two children, a relationship, and possibly not married or just recently married. They haven't been married for years and years. So those are some interesting little tidbits that I noticed about them. But we can jump into this person here. This guy, he has a very interesting budget as far as his finances go. He has his fixed expenses, which is $7,000 a month, which includes his rent, transportation, cleaning lady, gas, all the kinds of subscriptions and stuff. And the grocery bill for his, I guess, family of three is $200 a week. So that's pretty interesting. So what do you guys want to jump in and add about this?
Yeah, one thing I noticed about him I find interesting is that he makes $250,000 a year, but he rents. He doesn't own a house. He works in real estate. He makes $250, but he rents an apartment. And I think that's pretty interesting, right? I'm curious as to why. Like, it doesn't really say why, but I am definitely a little curious as to why.
I can say too, though, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times it could be that individuals aren't able to get the type of things that they want. And also I think when we also look into his story as well, because I've read it a little bit when they talk about some of his planning, if you scroll down just a little bit more, two things real quick I just want to show too. It's kind of funny too. Being in Miami, how he's like, yo, I'm a big fan of watches, so I just want this new Cardi watch that just dropped, right? But
Right.
Outside of that, though, he said he has 15 credit cards. You know what I'm saying? 15. You know what
A
I
lot
mean?
of credit cards. That's a lot of debt.
And that's a lot of credit, right? In that, you know, he has roughly around 7,700 on one card, and that it, you know, will likely be paid off or should be paid off by the end of the month. So, you know, I think what I was going to go with that as well is, instead of him necessarily have a house, I think one of the things he says too right here is for the saving for retirement. I believe he says that he was looking to get like an apartment building where he was going to, you know, yeah, there it is, with your current, you know, career prospects. You know, he wanted to say that he wanted to get an apartment building and, you know, hope that he can build that up and, you know, be able to get the income that he wants then to buy the type of home that he would like to have. And so I don't know if that's so much too, again, that he's putting that off for something like that to try to, you know, hey, I can maybe get something now, but what I can get now might not be what I really want. You know what I'm saying? So let me hold off and then I can get what I really want later if I kind of invest. And I think this is kind of like his mindset, like, because he also talks about how saying like, you know, most of my time, I think when he talked about the retirement, he was like, oh, most of my money is kind of out right now. You know what I'm saying? My money's in play. And it kind of reminds me of like the conversation sometimes when I heard Dame speak on it one time, and he was just saying how, you know, again, you know, it was Robert Kiyosaki was saying it as well. Like, you know, when you saving money, it's not moving, it's not working for you. You need your money to be working for you. So that's the mindset I think that I see out of him, that hustler, that mindset of like, okay, if I got this, let me invest it in that. And, everything's always in play, everything's in motion, everything's moving towards something to bring something else back. So that way, if this don't go, then we got that. If that don't go, then we got this. If this ain't working, then we got that going. But you know what I'm saying? It's always something going. So I can't tell you maybe on a, hey, I have a set 401k plan, or maybe a one set IRA or something like that. They might say their mindset might be, I got 4 or 5 different things going on right now, so maybe that's my 401k, and maybe that might be my IRA, or I'm gonna take a little bit off of all of those and invest in those things. So that's what I think we might see with him as well.
Maybe one thing I do wish that they had asked everybody is whether or not they have a savings, period. Not are they saving for retirement or whatever, but just, I mean, do you have a savings? Because I think that also is important to see, the differences based on, what level they are financially. Because, there's a lot of people that don't have a savings. They just don't have the money. They can't afford to have a savings if they're living check to check. And so I think it would be interesting to see whether or not it's kind of like what you're talking about, E, or if it's literally just then they're kind of frivolous with money, or they just don't have it. Let's just put that out there too, because some people, not that they're frivolous, they just don't make a lot.
Yeah, I like that. As far as the finances goes, he's building towards growing to that next level. I think he's trying to transition from upper class to wealthy, and it's not that you pointed out that he's renting. It's not that he can't probably purchase a house, but he's trying to save up his money and.
Well, I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying it's an observation. Like, I'm just
Yeah, it's
curious.
interesting. Like,
Yeah.
he probably doesn't want another mortgage or anything like that, or something. So there's probably some other reasons, right?
I mean, there obviously is a reason, but I was just curious because it's just something that I noticed, right? Because we'll see later on that there are people that are maybe in a similar tax bracket that do own homes, right? So it was just curious. It was just something that I just noticed was an observation. For all we know, he could be a divorcee and moved out and got an apartment. You know what I mean? It could be anything like that. It could also be like what you guys are talking about. It could be, there's a plethora of reasons as to why he may be renting rather than owning a home, especially as a real estate agent. So it's not like he doesn't have an edge on the market, like he doesn't know what's available, right? But it was just an observation. I just found it to be interesting.
Yeah, and I like how he has his goals lined out, right? He wants to get 50,000 a month from the apartment building he purchased, then another 50,000 a month from the real estate business. So he really wants to be making what 100,000 a year or plus or more with his other investments to where he gets $1 million every 5 years. So that's nice.
He has a goal of 1.5 million per year.
Yeah, 1,500,000. Yeah. Sorry. So that's interesting. And last thing I wanted to mention how often he worries about money, which I found pretty interesting, is like all the time. He's like every single day, what's the next move? What's the next move? So he might be some of those anxious people about their goals and like, oh man, I need to achieve this, I need to achieve this. So I can understand that a little bit.
Yeah, but I think he kind of has a hustler spirit, right? Like he's into so many things.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why he's always thinking about money, right? If you are just getting money and you're not like hustling to get it, you may not necessarily think about it as much. But if you're always like, what's next? What's next? Of course, you're gonna always be thinking about it.
Yeah.
I also want to tag in real last thing on the last little bit with this one because I think we pretty much wrapping them up. But I think it was interesting to notice between him and the last guy too, how they kind of reach on the taxes thing and they talk about how, do you think taxes are that much? And he's like, no, I don't think that they're too high. You know what I'm saying? And I love what he said too here. He said he had a boss that told him, you know what I'm saying, if you're complaining about your taxes, if you don't want to make, you know what I'm saying, get taxed as much, you can make less. And at that point, people just shut up because it's just like, you know what I'm saying? You just want
Right.
what you want to do. You can not get taxes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, we can lower that, but yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
and I think, but in contrast too to what the other guy, Tim, dad told him was, he said, you should be thankful that you live in a country in which you can be taxed, right? And I think that went to a mindset of just saying, like, again, you're fortunate enough to live in a country in which, you know what I'm saying, you have the ability to make as much that the country just feels like they just want a little piece of what, you were able to go out and achieve for yourself versus, you know what I'm saying, being in a place where you don't even have that right? Like you said, you come from a communist country. So, you don't have that right to, have a free market and to be able to, get what you feel like, your demand brings. So, I thought that was also an interesting perspective that these gentlemen brought, and I also wonder too if that also comes from their backgrounds, because of their name means it doesn't necessarily look like they're traditional white males, in a sense of
So
American. Like that Vladimir dude seems like maybe it might be like a Russian name, and the other guy looked like
I don't know if you mean Yokov?
yeah, Yokov.
Yeah, let me scroll to
Yeah,
him again.
yeah,
Yoko.
Yeah, Yokov.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, Yaakov
Yeah,
Villasimil, and the other guy, Mr. Nguyen, he's probably Vietnamese or something.
Yeah, like an Asian descent or something like that. So again, you know what I'm saying? Those are those type of mindsets. So I just want
we know Asians are doing the best in this country. I mean, it was in 2016 and 2022. It's still pretty consistent with that. So that hasn't really changed as far as finances go.
Yeah, and I mean that could be part of it as well, because again, like they're one of those cultures that are used to having family be around, and you know what I'm saying, and doing what they do. So they may all do live in that home together, and that's probably why they all are able to, you know, buy the home or buy whatever it is. Of course, he makes what he makes, and he brings in what he's able to bring in, so he probably can pay for his own home and everything. But I'm sure that foundation may have gotten started with them all being together for a little bit, or for him at least being there. I don't know,
Right.
married and stuff. But yeah, we can go on to the next one.
Yeah. So Michael Green, he makes 53,000 the median income here. So his rent at this time in Brooklyn is $1,000 a month. I don't think so anymore. That's a big change.
I mean, even at that time, like,
yeah, that was kind
I
of.
mean, where were they living in Brooklyn, right? Because I was in New York in 2016, and right, were they right, were they in Bedford Stuyvesant projects, or were they like in a nice place? You know what I'm saying? Because $1,000 is real low. I remember when I was in law school and I did my externship, I did it in New York, and my rent was about $850, something like that. But I was renting a room. I was renting a studio apartment, right?
He has 3 children, and
exactly.
So
I mean, they might share a
know.
room. It might be a 2-bedroom. They share a room. It could be a roommate situation. It could be living with family. It doesn't say.
But the thing about Mr. Green that I noticed as I was reading his profile, he's very organized, and they're very tight with the money. Like they're very specific. Like he even mentions it here under his budget about, they go to BJ's, they spend 150, they can get a lot of stuff in bulk. So they're pretty mindful about their current situation. So I think that's pretty good.
I think that might have been a misprint too, because it says like he paid 150 per month, but then when they asked him about the weekly grocery bill, it was 100 to 125.
Yeah, he probably budgets BJ's at 150 per month, but he might do some other stuff. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, so he said I budget at least 150 per month for BJ's wholesale.
Oh, got you, for BJ's. Got you.
Yeah, so but their grocery bill probably averages out to be like that a week, right? So they probably do other stuff too. So, well, this guy, he does have big dreams. As far as his real estate goes of owning a house, he wants to, buy a house worth $500,000 to $600,000. That's pretty interesting there. You
Well,
know,
I mean, that's about the market for a house out there.
Right.
for a rent style house, 4 to 5 bedrooms.
In New York?
Well, I mean, that's what he said.
Yeah, in New York. He wants to
He
stay in
he
Brooklyn. He want
loves
to
to
buy
stay
a
in
house.
Brooklyn,
He wants to
but
buy a house in Brooklyn. Yeah.
it's a half a million to 600,000 at that time. So it's probably like 300,000 more now. So it's probably
Right.
almost $1 million he had to pay
Right.
now, uh,
Right.
bare minimum. So another thing I'm noticing here from Mr. Green here is that he does want some of the nicer things, right? But I think his vehicle that he wants is due to the fact that he is married with 3 kids, so they want a big spacious vehicle, which is kind of understandable. Um, so he seems like he's really into family, a family man. Because I think a lot of his purchases and the things that he wants is due to the fact that he does have a pretty decent sized family.
Yeah, because I mean,
Like there's 5 people
Volvo,
in that household.
right. Volvos are one of the safest cars. He said he really likes it. It's a really nice car. He really likes it. He even has the color picked out. So he really, really does like the Volvo with the little TV in the back for the kids. So yeah, he wants anything that he does, you can tell he does it for his family.
Also, another
Um,
thing I like about him, as well as we see to your point, Malik, that he does definitely have plans and is meticulous in the way that he's trying to acquire and get himself free financially, right? We
yeah.
see it from them referencing, the saving up to get their furniture sets, to then also how he manages his credit cards to make sure that there's something in which he can always be able to make sure that he's able to make his payments and things, but that he also participates in his 401k plan. So taking advantage of any opportunity that his or employers offer him for saving for a retirement. But then also it talked about him looking to try to take down his student loans and pay down his student loans, and I think that's important too, because again, I think we're going to see a little later, someone else refers to how they look to do that, whereas others may feel like, their student loan debt may be something that they just try not to even think of.
Mhm. Right. So another thing I thought was pretty interesting, that he doesn't have any credit card debt. Even though he only makes 53,000 a year, I would say, as far as he handles money is okay. I think he spends a lot on his family. Like that's where his money goes. Like taking care of his children. Like they they purchase a lot of bed sheets and dresser drawers and all this other stuff for their girls and all that. So
Well, I mean, they needed it, and he said they're outgrowing it now, so they're gonna need a new one. So you're right. He does definitely take care of his kids. But one thing I wanted to point out about the credit card debt, him not having credit card debt doesn't mean he doesn't have a credit card, because he does say he has a
no, he
Chase
has credit
Visa.
cards. Yeah.
Right. He has one. He has a Chase Visa, but he's very, like you guys pointed out before, he's very responsible and meticulous about his budgeting and what he does with his money. He may not, it
Doesn't look
doesn't
like he
sound like
lives
he's gonna,
beyond his means at all.
And
right.
I
It
want to
doesn't
say one
seem,
thing too. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you all off, but I love that last sentence. I have to thank my wife. You know what I'm saying? She helps me stay focused. And a lot of people kind of credit their wives or their significant other from being able to be someone that help their situation grow. And I think people should like kind of look to that. Like if you got a partner that actually is a real partner, that's someone that's going to be able to help you. You know what I'm saying? And y'all should be able to grow financially, mentally, spiritually, all of that. You know what I'm saying? Together, and they should be able to see the vision, and y'all will be able to come together and work towards that vision. And I think we've seen that within this example, and I think we're going to see another example of that really well when we look at the females.
yeah. I was just gonna say real quick, I don't know if he necessarily knows where every penny goes, but he does have a very good grasp about what's going on with his money. and how he plans on taking care of for his kids. Like you said, he doesn't seem to live above his means, but he does what he can within the means that he has. Like, for example, with his plans for his kids' college, what he does is he every 2 weeks he puts away between $75 to $100, which may not be a lot of money, but his kids are only 8 right now. So if he's doing that every 2 weeks until they go to college, he may be able to afford for them to go, right? He may
Mhm.
be able to cover the cost, or especially too, you never know. You can always get grants and scholarships and things like that. So it'll be a surplus if his kids are able to attain that. But if not, like, he'll at least be able to put a dent or minimize, at least at the minimum, minimize the amount of money that they have to take out in student loans. So I think that that's a very responsible thing to do financially, not just for yourself, but for your children and for
The,
their
la-
future, because you're definitely investing in them.
the last thing I wanted to highlight with this guy before we move on was that fact that he points out that money's not something that he stressed over. And I think that might be due to his wife and his family structure and the fact that he's happy 8 out of 10, and that he was taught that, you can do more with less, right? You don't necessarily have to have all the money in the world to achieve happiness. Because I think some people think, okay, just because you have a lot of money, that's what makes you happy. Maybe he's focused on his purpose, taking care of his family, and that's what makes him happy. Just because you have that $1 million like the top person doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be happy. There's plenty of people who have money, but they're not happy. They're not on their purpose. They're not doing what they really want to do in life. So I think that's very important here. Even though he's only making the median income of 53,000, he's still happy. 8 out of 10. I mean, even just increasing his salary by like 200,000, he said he'll be able to live the lifestyle he wants, right? He doesn't need $1 million a year annually, right? He just needs 200,000 to live, do whatever he wants to do. So I think that's something that a lot of people can take note of and take a lesson here. Like, be on your purpose and do what makes you happy. And you don't really need all the money in the world. You just need some of the important things like family, support, love, and other things that make you happy besides money. Like, all the money in the world doesn't equate to happiness. So I just wanted to point that out with this guy.
Absolutely. Now we get to Demetrius Campbell.
And we got Mr. Campbell here. Works at a lounge. So he's single. He has 2 kids. So you know, his monthly income goes to anti-poverty nonprofit. I guess that's where his stay. So that's interesting.
Hey, hold on 1 second, Chris. I just want to, because one thing we didn't do is can draw and contrast the age difference. The first guy was 35. The second guy was 41. The third guy, I believe, was 40 something as well. So we looking at this, Demetrius is in his 20s. You know what I mean? Like mid 20s at this point. So they've at least had at a minimum, you know what I'm saying, around 10 plus years over him. You know what I mean? To kind of get themselves a little more established, a little bit more a little more bearings under their feet, maybe make some more mistakes, learn some things. Whereas, but also what we noticed as well is Demetrius has also 2 daughters as well. You know what I'm saying? At that younger age than most of the other men did. And so I think this I don't necessarily know that it necessarily has an effect on, him and where he was necessarily going. But I do think that, you know what I'm saying, it's something to take note of and looking at, the difference in the lifestyles.
Yeah, and also too, I was just gonna say the where it says 30% of income through anti-poverty nonprofit Heartland Alliance, that's his rent. So that company, that 30% of his rent is paid by that organization. That's what that means.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for clarifying that for us, Sam. What I did notice just looking at his age and the amount of kids he has, like it seems to be the trend in this country. Like if you're older and your kids a little bit younger, you tend to have more money because you might have saved up. You develop more, especially as men, right? You saved up, you develop more, you have more money. Because this guy's only 25, right? So who knows where he'll be in another 5 or 6 years, right? He still has room to grow, room to improve, especially as far as his income goes. I know he's at a lounge right now working based off tips mainly and stuff like that. But once he removes a lot of debt, as is coming out right now, and solidifies having a better budget because he doesn't really have a budget right now. So, but also he doesn't really make that much money, right? He's at the poverty line. But once he increases his skills, um, develops a budget, and gets out of his debt, I think he'll be much better off, and you'll see him at least get to the median area of income. Those are just some of my thoughts about.
One thing that I just noticed it right now, is the gentlemen who are fathers but are not married and not with the mother of their children, they don't say anything about child support. It's just an observation that I made, because for some men, that child support is a bill. It's a huge bill. And it can really have an effect, especially when you're talking about somebody that's below the poverty line. It can definitely have a huge effect on, their means and how they live.
Yeah, but I
It
know
was
it's
just something.
bogus as hell if you party right now and child support is a bill. Like, you're supposed to look at that as your responsibility, and that's part
It is, but when it's mandated by the court, they get to tell you how much money you can pay.
absolutely. No,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's what I mean about it being a bill. Like, you should definitely always want to take care of your kids, but money is money. When it's coming in and it's going out, and you're accounting for it. It's something that you should account for. Like, you account for food, right? Every single one of these people, we talk about how much money they spend on food, you know what I mean, on expenses. Child support's an expense. It's a responsibility, but it's an expense. And I think, I just noticed that nobody talks about it. Maybe none of these 4 people had it, you know what I mean, had to pay it, but it's definitely something that I just noticed right now. Nobody mentioned it. Maybe they don't have to pay child support. Good for them.
Yeah, it doesn't look like most of the guys on here had to pay child support. Even this guy, I know he's a single with 2 daughters, but he might have a co-parenting situation. He does mention, as far as his family goes, that he wish he could afford more stuff. He doesn't like the fact that he can't tell his kids that he can't get them the pillow pads like that he wants to get them, or a new car he wants to be able to get them. Um, but it's pretty interesting that just buying a TV on Black Friday deal, he had to carefully plan that out. So he definitely needs to, work on improving his income. I know he's aware of that. He's only 25, so he's not even thinking about retirement. But these are some of the things, even at 25, you want to start thinking about early, so you're not working all your life so hard, right?
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things I wanted to point out with him, is that I think even though he's young, he still needs to focus on the budgeting and planning better and getting his skills up so he can increase his income.
Yeah, and also to being a little bit more responsible, because where it's talking about a majority of his debt, he says he has about $3,000 in tickets. Like, yeah, he's got old phone bills and medical bills and stuff like that, but roughly 3,000 of them are in tickets, because he's hadn't been able to pay them, and then they double. His vehicle's getting booted, things like that. And so he has to get on top of that, because number one, he's drowning. That you can see that. If to have $3,000 in tickets and then you're getting booted because you can't pay it, like, he has to find a way to try to get on top of that. Because if you can't get to work, then you can't make money, and you can't get to work if you always got a boot on your car. So, I mean, unless he plans on hopping on the metro, or whatever the transit system is called out there in Chicago.
I
Right.
would I would say too, another thing that we got to look at and be mindful of too is like, this is one individual that we see that I think that says they don't have a credit card. And I don't necessarily feel like, the credit card is necessarily something that every individual needs to have, but credit is a tool that can help you be able to access other things that you may need. And one thing about it is you're gotta have it, you have to have a history of it in order to like have it. So I think like, some of us may have known like once you start getting going early on in life, if you don't have, what I'm saying, credit, it's almost like it's a bad thing against you. You feel me? Because it's like, oh, well, you don't have any credit history with us already. So you technically in a bad credit situation, even though you never really, been late on anything, or you didn't make any payments or something like that, or missed payments. Is just you don't have any history for them to look at. So him being able to try to establish that would be something that I think would be something that I think would be, beneficial to him in the future. And again, I know that could be a deadly sword, because if you're not on it and you're not managing that well, you can get behind on that as well. You know what I'm saying? So I think you have to know how to utilize it, even if it's something like we heard someone else talk about, like a prepaid. Well, not prepaid won't do as much, but anyhow, we can go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have another part of the article that goes into the women. They did the same analysis for the women, and it'll be interesting to see, what they said, right? It was pretty interesting because, of course, men and women, they're both capable of doing the same things when it comes to workforce, but we think differently to arrive at the same conclusion sometimes.
But also too, it also focuses on a little bit more on the pay gap, because there's a pay gap between men and women. This article says women make 79% on the dollar to men. So for every $1 that men make, um, women make 79 cents. Now that 79 cents is an average across the races. It's not um, white women, black women, it's just across the board. So because when you break that down, that those numbers are not equal either. So um, we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. You can go ahead and cue up that article there, Malik, so we can go ahead and take a look at that. Um, Here it is. So you have women that are right around the same tax bracket. The first woman is Heidi Burkhart. She's a 34-year-old woman. She makes about $1 million a year. She is a real estate brokerage for an affordable housing. She's in a relationship, but she doesn't live with her significant other. Sounds like her and them, they're either just not at that place where they want to live with each other, or they're on that Oprah Stedman stuff. Just, hey, you like it, I love it. They live in Manhattan, so I'm not surprised that in 2016 that her rent is $6,500 a month. I also noticed that, she's renting and not owning, and she lives in Manhattan. She probably lives in, upper Manhattan, things like that, for rent to be so high. When they asked her, what I found really interesting about her is she makes all this money, but she just kind of throws caution to the wind a little bit when it comes to her paper. Like when they asked, "Do you have a budget?" She said, "I didn't used to at all. That's changing, but so that means no, and that she's working on it." She knows that she needs to have a budget, because that, and what that also tells me is that she earns about $1 million a year. If she had a budget, she probably would be making way more. Or, I mean, would probably have way more. She'd make the same but have more money. Um, she has a weekly grocery bill of $200 a month, a week, I think, and 1,000 if she's entertaining. That makes sense to me. $200 a week, I guess that's subjective. Everybody's different. Some people eat more than others, I guess. $200 is not a lot, but it is a lot. It just depends on the circumstance, like where you're shopping. Like, are you at Whole Foods, or are you at getting your stuff at, Aldi or something like that? You know what I mean? Or BJ's. like my man, Mr. Green on the other page. You know what I mean? I think all of that just depends. Um, One thing that I noticed to compare, the one thing I noticed about her, she too, um, she doesn't really have anything. She doesn't really. There's not really much that she doesn't want. I mean, that she doesn't have. And I believe she also said that she doesn't see herself retiring. She's saving for it. She started very early at 24 years old, which is good. Which is goes to what Malik was just saying about what was his name, Demetrius. She started her retirement at around 24, whereas Demetrius, he didn't have anything saved yet for his retirement. You can go ahead and scroll.
Also, both people, her and him, both said that they have at least 7 figures put away for retirement.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's also important too, because that means they'll be able to.
Remain millionaires when they
Neither one of them
retire.
plan on not work. What you say?
Oh, that they can remain millionaires even when they plan on retiring.
Took the words right out my mouth. Even though, because they're gonna continue to work, right? So even though they'll have that money, if for whatever reason they do choose to stop working, they'll still be able to maintain that lifestyle that they have. So I think that that's important too, because I think when a lot of people think about retirement, they just think about, I got to have money saved, but they don't think about the type of lifestyle that they want to have once they retire. Because that living from check business is hard, especially when you're elderly and you don't know if Social Security is going to be around by the time you retire. Um, and so, like I said, she said she thinks she's going to work forever. And just like the other millionaire, he said the same thing. The Mr. Yokov, he also said that, and he was the one. What did he make? 250 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed that all three of them said that they don't think that they're ever going to stop working, and I think that that's important because that goes to their mindset and how they intend on making money.
Well, one thing I want to point out with her, just real quick, because she is kind of similar in a way to the other rich guy, but also there's differences, right? I like her mentality to certain things, right? As a business person, right? She has that mentality that she can work for it, right? If there's anything she can't afford, she can work for it. As far as the wage gap, she's like, well, my hard work, I can get what I want. There's no wage gap. If I out earn men, I out earn women. There's no wage gap for me. She still has that similar mentality of the other rich people, right? I'll be working until forever, basically. She has lofty goals. She's a real career woman, which is nothing wrong with it. And that may be a reason too, the reason why one of her relationships the way it is, because she might put her career first. She's focusing on that, and she doesn't want anything to disrupt what she got going on from a business and financial perspective. So this lady seems like she's all about her coin, which I'm not mad about at all, and I can respect it.
Yeah, I don't think she pays attention to the wealth gap. I really think that's really what it is.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
she's like, what little gap?
well, right, and I don't know, and I don't.
From a standpoint of too, like that has to be coming from a certain level of privilege to be able to have that ability, right? Like, because like again, yeah, true. Like you said, I make a little bit. I know I make less than some men, but I'll also make more than a lot more men. You know what I'm saying? Like, right?
Right,
So I
but
think you feel like that. You could feel that way when you got that flex. But let's imagine if you was like the person who is doing all of the work up under them, and you like, man, I just need my opportunity, right? Like, or I'm just not in the right spaces to kind of get.
Or what about? But the other thing is, what if it's just that she's not paying attention to anybody else's pocket? She easily could be. There could honestly be a wealth gap, and then she has no idea about it because she's just focusing on what she's doing, right? She could be making $1 million a year, but her male counterpart could be making $2 million a year, and she has no idea. Or maybe not 2 million, but maybe $1.5 million, or $1.3 million. And and she may not have any idea, because in her mind, I'm still getting money, like you said, more than most men, more than most women. But it's like that's the thing about the wealth gap. It's not about other men, period. It's your equals, your counterparts, who, whether or not if you're qualified for the same job and you're working the same job, doing the same work, and you're giving the same quality, you shouldn't be getting paid different money because of your gender. And I don't know if it's that she doesn't believe in the wealth gap just based on her privilege and things that she's earned, or if she's naive about a wealth gap, or if she just doesn't care, right? And I kind of feel like she doesn't care.
Honestly, Sam, I just think, she's just focused on the money so much that, like, if there is a wealth gap and she sees it, she could just hustle harder, because she's always had to hustle hard, I guess, because she's a woman, or maybe people counted her out, or whatever the reason was. That instilled in her to confidence to say, like, look, that stuff doesn't matter as long as I can work hard and I have the opportunity to work.
Yeah, no, and like you said, I'm able to find a way, and I think
and knock it out the park.
Yeah, I think people that have that type of mindset to a degree, it's like, you're not gonna stop me. I don't care how many doors close, I'm gonna find one that's open. And no, I don't think that this is one of the first people that we said that said that they were indifferent about taxes. And I mean, I guess that's a very lawyerly answer, right?
Yeah, it depends.
Right. Like I can almost feel like she could probably say so, but a lot of her, I think she said a lot of her investments and a lot of her money may come off of, again, is it the money that she's earning as with her brokerage firm, versus is it the money that she's getting off her investments? Because as we were saying earlier, and not necessarily on the show, but earned income is taxed different than passive income. You know what I'm saying? So if it's the money that she's getting from, the houses or the investment properties, that may not be looked at, you know what I'm saying, as badly as she might feel like, well, I'll actually go out here and bust my tail chasing these sales and having to take people out and doing this, that, and the third to get these sales for my actual earned income. And I get taxed the most at that. So that could be something, because I think when we look at a lot of people and I don't think we looked at the last two individuals on the male side when they talked about taxes, but I definitely think that they had different viewpoints on it, and it's more so spoke to saying that they felt as though that they were being taxed a little bit too much.
All right, I'm gonna move on here to Megan Williams.
One of my favorites.
She makes about $350K per year. She's a family medicine physician, a real estate investor as well. So she has a husband and 3 kids. So she's has a structured family unit, and she started investing in real estate during her medical school days, and that was the last time she rented. Now she owns a house, and the mortgage is $379,000.
Right, she's please she also has some investments. One thing that I really liked about Megan, shout out to her, because she was able to get her medical student loans paid off. We talk about student loans all the time on our podcast, because professional school is expensive, especially when you go to a private one. Medical school is expensive, law school is expensive. So the fact that she was able to get her student loans paid off, I think that's a beautiful thing. Regardless of how much money she makes and all that, I think it's a beautiful thing, especially too because it opens the door for her to be way more financially free, because she no longer has that obligation.
Also within Megan's story, I think that I like behind along with that is as well, besides just, again, attacking that debt, we also see her talk about how she has, 2 investment properties currently that she's paying for along with her current home, as well as, 2 of them that have already been paid off. And so I think that's important, because we see her, not only making a good amount of money maybe within her career and her profession, but she's also able to get that money coming in also as well from incomes from the homes. So those are things that I think also weigh in on her success as a mother, or excuse me, as a woman. And then when we look into what we talk about charity and people that's giving, and I think a big thing is when we see a lot of individuals who have things that are willing to do such. In this regard, we didn't really necessarily hear anything from the first lady, but we hear something in her regards to talking about her serious planning. And it was funny how she said it was serious planning because it took 4 months to take care of it, right? And we could say, oh wow, 4 months is a lot, but is it a lot for a car? You know what I'm saying? Where people take out, year, what is it, like 5, 6 year
5, 6 years,
leases
yeah.
or terms or long terms to pay that off. And so she was able to do it within months, and that was considered to be serious. Right. And the good thing is that she was able to give her car to her nephew, you know what I'm saying? So that was a blessing that she was able to be able to give that to someone else. Another thing that I thought was interesting in their story too, as well, was I think if you scroll down a little bit again, when he talked about the felts of the wage gap, and she says like as a female in the family, you know what I'm saying, she's always involved in the children's child care. When they get sick, you know what I'm saying, she gets to go gets them, and when they have a day off, she stays at home with them. And this is one thing I thought was kind of funny. She says, not because I have to or because my husband doesn't want me to, but because I want to. And I started working part-time in my main job when my baby was 5 months old. I know I make less than my male coworkers in the same field. So within that though, I felt like just the start part of it, like when you talked about her being a stay-at-home mom, and I thought that was big because, or not, excuse me, but her staying with the children and doing the childcare. I thought that was big because it's like, again, like who better to stay at home than a family practitioner, you know what I'm saying, for your children. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's typically what you do for a profession by trade. Like you would be the best person to be with a child that's sick. And I'm not necessarily saying that you got to do it all the time, but that's like the best person that you will, one of the best people that you will want to have around your children when there's anything like an illness related situation or kind of period. And I found that to be interesting because a lot of times you will hear like a lot of women be like, oh, I kind of want to stay with the children, da da da, and it's like that's cool, but like, do you have any necessary backgrounds that what I mean allow you to kind of be an asset to the development of the child, besides just nurturing and caring for them, like, and as far as actually, like we said, developing and making sure that they're kind of growing up and they have the right type of things. And her profession as a family practitioner, you definitely think that would make sense, for her to be the one to do that. So I think that, and the last thing I thought that was funny was too, is because she said, not because my husband doesn't want me to do it. So I'm assuming, what does that mean? Like on a reverse, that if he wanted her to do it, she would be like, all right, nah, I'm straight now. Like, you know what I mean? But,
No, she would probably
I
still
don't
do
want
it anyway.
to say that I didn't want you to. So she's like, all right, well, since he don't not want me to, I guess I will then. You know what I mean?
Nah, she probably just does it because she wants. But one thing I did find interesting about something that she said about the wage gap specifically was that she kind of gave an excuse for it, right? And that excuse is she believes there's a wage gap because women go on maternity leave, right? And so, I don't know if that's necessarily that makes sense to me because not all women have kids, and there are also women that have kids that don't go on maternity leave. It just depends on the job and things like that. She was trying to make it more specific to her because she did go from full time to part time, but at the same time, like going to have a kid isn't, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not pay somebody the same amount. I can understand for the period of time you're not getting the same amount, but overall you should probably get equal pay. That's just, me. But again, like I said, I did find that part to be interesting. And then her going down to part-time sounded more like a choice. Like, and it's great that she had the ability to be able to do that she's financially free enough to be able to just say, all right, my main job, I'm gonna go down to part-time so I can take care of my kids, but I still have all of this other passive income coming in from my rental properties and my investments and things like that, so that it can help supplement my income in that way. So I did think that was a good thing because you do want your money to be able to make money for you without you having to do a whole lot of stuff. And as it relates to the college tuition for her children, what her and her husband did, I found to be interesting. So the way that they're saving it, they're using the tuition for Duke University as a goalpost, right? So they save in accordance with the tuition of a particular school. Doesn't mean that their kids are going to go there to Duke University. Doesn't even mean they're going to go to college. But if they do, they want to be able to say, okay, well, if our kids do go to Duke, we'll be able to cover it completely. So that way they don't have to worry about that debt. And I found that to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. Megan here has a lot of lofty goals. Like you said, the wage gap, you know, I make less than my male coworkers in the same field, but you know, I think once you reach a certain level of income, it's not necessarily a big issue to them.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person, but that's what I would gather from these two articles. Yeah.
But she's saying, she said it's okay. I try to make up differences by making sure financing my family judicious and spending more diversified and not dependent on earned income. So I think that's important to note. Like, when you own and control your own destiny, besides working at a job or having earned income, and you have other investments and other things you're doing, the wage gap doesn't necessarily affect you. I'm not saying that there should be a wage gap. Of course, a man and women doing the same job should be paid the same, but these are solutions to the problem, right? Options to where you don't, the wage gap doesn't affect you. So I like that she's exploring that route and not just, saying like, oh, okay, these men just don't like me and stuff like that. I like that approach to it personally. Look for alternative solutions. It's not to say that what's going on is right, but I like that. And she does have an interesting plan for her kids, as you mentioned, Sam. So
And for herself, because they have goals as to how much money she wants to make in active income and in passive income. And I think that's also a good thing too, because it shows that she has a very clear plan. I don't know if she's counting every penny, but she definitely has a clear plan.
Right. And the last thing I wanted to mention quickly is about the taxes. It's nice to know the people who make more don't really concern themselves with taxes as much. She has a different view. Like, oh, okay, the roads are nice where I'm at. That's where my taxes is going. People who can't take care of themselves, that's where my taxes is going. So she has a nice look, a positive outlook on it. So, I mean, if we all had that outlook on it, we probably feel better about our taxes, but we don't. So, so that's that.
I mean, it's probably good that everybody doesn't, because you need somebody to keep them in check, because you don't need to take all your money on taxes.
Right. But if she's making less money, she probably feel a little bit different about it, but she's doing pretty well for herself. So she has that.
The queen of the field. You know what I'm saying? A real woman.
Next up we got here Jill Shankman. She's 38, making $80,000 a year as a public elementary school teacher. She's married with 2 children.
First of all, let's just hold on. I gotta I just don't know what kind of money her district has got going on. She makes $80,000 as a school teacher.
And this is 2016, not 2020.
Right, that was in 2016. $80,000 as a school teacher. That's nuts. Like, shout out to her. I don't know how you pulled that one off, Mrs. Shankman, but shout out to you, because school teachers don't typically make $80,000 a year.
Hudson Valley is like midway between, I'm assuming, like the city and Albany.
But they do increase your pay after a while. Like, so she's 38. She's probably been there for like almost 15 years. So they do.
It says in here somewhere in the article
their pay. Yeah, I know it doesn't really say in the article, but
80 though? 80?
Yeah, I know she might be in. It is Hudson Valley. She
about the wrong things.
She probably in one of the lucrative areas.
Why y'all worried about how much they got? Listen, she got enough to take care of her and all 3 her husband and the kids. So let's get to.
I mean, I can dig it. I ain't knocking it.
Let's
I'm
figure
just,
out how
I
she
just
do
want
it.
to know.
Well, Sam, let's see if she complains about the wage gap. So we're gonna keep going.
Let's see how she do it, because it sounds like she could get right. She need to write a book, okay? Because she's out here
Right, on how to make $80,000 as a public school teacher.
Well, I
When
mean,
everybody else is getting paid like
how to
35.
retire your husband, okay? You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So the
Real
interesting
progressive
part
women out
is
here.
she has
Modern day
a
problems need
stay-at-home
modern day
dad
solutions.
That's pretty interesting.
Right, that her husband's a stay-at-home dad. I mean, hey, choices, compromise. No, we talked about that.
Yeah, yeah, and she has a little bit of dead hair, but it's not too much. But I mean, if your husband's not working, you're giving him some sort of allowance. I mean, 25,000
I
debt.
don't know what he doing. He might be good doing what he doing. Don't do
I mean,
it.
I'm not saying
Okay, I'm not gonna advocate
how their
any
relationship
slander of this family. I have to protect this type of family.
I'm not slandering it. I'm just saying, like 25,000 by yourself is a little harder than 25,000 together. That's all I'm saying.
This is a woman led by God. Amen.
Yeah, so here it is. You can kind of see. So at 56, it'll be 30 years of teaching. So she has what a few more years to go with that. We do.
She would have to teach. Wait.
Like she's been teaching for a minute.
Right. Well, so she can retire at 55. She's been teaching
So
for
she's been teaching for like a decade.
30 years old.
Hey,
like,
how old is she? I thought it said she was like.
She ain't been teaching.
That math ain't mathing. Go. How old is she?
Oh, she said I'll work till I'm 56. I've been teaching for 30 years.
And then when she's 56, it'll be 30 years in teaching. So
I was about to say, wait, you can't be teaching
for
when I've been teaching. Okay, that's that.
I was about to say that don't make sense.
Here
you ain't over here teaching at 8 years old. Okay.
She's gonna stop being a teacher. So
I got you.
So that's what it is. I don't know if she's gonna continue to do anything else, but that is her plan. Her father called her having a basket weaving degree, but she's doing good with the basket weaving degree.
Well, no, because she's probably not even using it. She had a psychology degree. She ain't a psychologist. She's a school teacher.
That's true.
Listen, y'all ain't gonna keep slandering psych degree people, okay?
But hey,
I ain't knocking it.
So here we go. This is what I want to get to. The meat and potatoes with this lady. It's pretty standardized as a teacher, but I felt it before when I was a 22-year-old administrative assistant. I was called Honey and Sweetie. That made me go back to school. I couldn't stand it. So she doesn't even talk about the wage gap. She talk about like more of the sexual gestures of that the men in that field are giving her.
Honey and Sweetie aren't really sexual, but they are definitely kind of demeaning. Like, I'm not your honey and I'm not your sweetie.
They could be seen as sexual gestures, or they could
depends on who's saying
flirtatious gestures.
Evidently, it was admin, so
but it doesn't say who's better.
Like, yeah, Morgan didn't say nothing about no going back and reporting.
But that's another thing. I'm gonna go back to school can say that to you too, so I can get my say those things to you. But I mean, I guess we would need more context, like you guys are saying, but. What I noticed here, she didn't say anything about the money. Like, the men were getting paid more. She didn't mention it. So it's interesting here. Her goals are to get 100,000 a year, and she's pretty happy. She 9 out of 10, she's pretty happy. She got her stay-at-home husband. Maybe that's what more women need to do. I mean, that's another conversation for another day, but I mean, you need to take care of your man and you can be happy 9 out of 10 here in this country, in the United States. Steve might be on to something. I would like to do a deep dive and another show on this, but in the interest of time, we got to move on.
Yes, we do have to move on.
Jill Shinkman, you are a GOAT. And
thank you for your service, Jill.
Y'all look great.
But yeah, so Monica Pillar here.
All right, I have
a caregiver.
Yeah, man. What about Miss Pilar? So Monica Pilar, she
Pilar, sorry.
Yeah, she lives at the poverty, just above the poverty line, making $650 a week. She's a home caregiver and a licensed esthetician. She's got two autistic children, one's 6 and one's 4, and she's divorced. Now, we're going to go through her stuff, but Miss Pilar sounds like she has a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes. She and it could mean something. It could mean she was abused in one way or another. There could have been some sort of toxicity going on in her relationship with her ex-husband. It's unclear. There's no facts there, so we don't want to go ahead and just assume or try to speculate, but it definitely looks as though there's some other things going on, which definitely wanted me to, it triggered me to want to make sure I mentioned that there are a group of women out there that were in these relationships with people, not even just women. There are people that were in relationships and they broke up because of abuse or something like that, and they had to escape that circumstance. And when they go to start their lives over again, they start off below the poverty line because somebody else was taking care of them, and now they have to take care of themselves, and they're starting over from scratch. So just her circumstance is something that, as it relates to our family status, is something that made me think of that. So again, like I said, she's divorced. She divorced 4 years before in 2012. She's got two sons. They both have autism. But she's constantly going to court because her ex-husband wants more visitation with her kids, and she has full custody. She has full custody, and she doesn't have family where she lives. She says when she walked away from her house, so she left her house with her kids, she says she had to leave everything behind, all her friends and money. So that just, that's one of the things that made me really think about that. She just took herself and her two kids, and it almost sounds like she had to leave. Either she left because she couldn't take it anymore, or she kind of escaped. Kind of sounds like could have been either one of those things. And as it relates to her housing, she is a part of a program, just like the Demetrius, right? He too was a part of a program. And the program that she's in is a not-for-profit organization that provides transitional housing for single mothers. So she's in a transitional home. She has an apartment, she pays rent, but it's a transitional home. Her rent is about $400 a month, but her lease is going to be ending soon, and she's not really sure where she's going to go with her two kids. So her situation is different, but like I said, it says she's an in-home caregiver and a licensed esthetician. So she does work, esthetician rather. So she does work, but she's got two autistic children, which I'm sure require a lot of her time and attention. And one of them is nonverbal, so she's probably going to have to live with him for the whole rest of her life. Does she keep a budget? It says she keeps a budget for like her bills, right? $40 on cable because her boys love to watch Sesame Street, right? She just refinanced her car, which was about $360, so that she can have a little bit more money. She doesn't spend a lot of money at the doctor and stuff because her ex-husband pays for medical insurance for her kids, but she does spend a whole lot of money on laundry. And as it relates to groceries, because her children have the issues that they have, they have a special diet. So she buys gluten-free and organic. She makes their lunches. So it sounds to me like even though she doesn't have a lot of money, she does try to find ways to save money. But it sometimes being in those types of financial situations end up costing you more money than it saves. But it's hard because it's kind of hard to get out of those situations until you make more money. When asked about the wealth gap, she said she definitely has felt it, and said also that women don't get maternity leave. And especially in a country like this, she thinks it's ridiculous. It's not that all jobs don't provide maternity.
Yeah, because that's not correct.
No, but there are definitely jobs that do not provide it. And when you're talking about lower
Some
paying
places do, some
jobs,
places don't.
but when you're talking about lower paying jobs, you see that happen more often. And so I think that's more so what she has come across. But I think that may be tougher. But she has been able to get some assistance for her kids, and also gets assistance from organizations like the United Way and things like that. So I think that her circumstance is very interesting, because it's quite possible that, she has been victimized in the past. The things that she hopes for are to be able to help her mom come from Colombia. But one of the things that makes it difficult for her, that I found to be really interesting, is when she was asked about credit cards. So she has a prepaid credit card to rebuild her credit, but she provided her credit because before her ex-husband, she left him, he had everything in her name. I mean everything in his name rather. And he took her passport, her social security card, and used her credit cards without her knowing, ran them up and jacked up her credit. So, there's definitely some other things going on there. And it's tough. But the other thing is, as far as retirement, is she's never thought about retiring. And it didn't come off to me that she never thought about retiring because she intends on working, or it's more so, to me, it would seem that she just never thought about that far ahead. She just never thought about retiring. How old is she again, Malik?
She was in her 30s, I believe. 38.
Yeah, 38. She's almost 40 years old, and she never thought about retiring. So, I think
that's a common theme with people. Most of everybody don't think about retiring, especially if they have certain goals. So her goal is 7,000 a month, so that's a good goal. So what I noticed about her is uh, about the wage gap, and just most of the women, the more money they made, the less of an impact or concern it was. But the more money they made, it was less of an impact and concern it was. But the less money they made is definitely like a big issue, right? So I think the first lady has a solution. Work hard, investments, business. Don't focus on the earned income. That's male dominated corporations, right? That's going to be biased against you because you're female, particularly maybe your race, gender, or whatever. But if you hustle hard and do it your own way, you won't feel as much effects about the wage gap. So that's interesting. And it's unfortunate if what she's saying is true about her ex-husband, that he basically was financially scamming her and then using her and abusing her. I don't know if she's an immigrant. I know her mother's in Colombia, so he could have been trying to use that, because she had a clean record, and then once she became a citizen and everything, she started to have the good credit and all that. He might have bad credit, so we don't know the details of that situation. But it was interesting to hear her story.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about the wage gap, though, is I hear what you're saying, Malik, as far as, the more money you make, the less you have to worry about it. But
it's a solution to it, right?
No, it's not. The solution to wage gap, is not having a wage gap. You know what I'm saying?
That's true, but it's an option, right? It's an option.
No, it's not an option. That's like saying
if you run your own business.
No, Malik, because that's like saying that. Well, hold on, though. That's like saying the same thing for Black people, right? A Black man and a white man who are equal counterparts, same education, working the same job, doing the same work, putting out the same quantity and quality, should make the same amount of money, period. And
I'm not saying that women shouldn't make as much as men. What I'm saying, this is an option for you to try to solve that problem for yourself. Like, look, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to solve it.
You shouldn't wait for somebody else to solve it. But I think the point that I'm making, I know the point that I'm making is that it shouldn't exist. So like the fact that we're even having the conversation is an issue, right? We shouldn't have to have a conversation about there even being a wage gap, because there shouldn't be one. There shouldn't be one amongst Black folks. There shouldn't be one between races. There shouldn't be one between genders, any of that. And I think that right there in part is part of the problem. one of the things I wanted to say that I noticed across the board between all 8 of these people is the mentality. You see what I'm saying? Like they all had a different type of mentality based on their bracket, right? If you notice the people that the 2 millionaires and the 2 people that were making 6 figures, their mentality about money was way different from that of the 2 people that were, I'm sorry, the 4 people that were made less than $100,000. And so it was not just they planned, right? They had, with the exception of Mr. Green. Mr. Green lived within his means. Like he had goals. You don't really see how he's going to attain, reaching those goals, but he definitely had them. But he lived within his means, and that was the thing that I found to be interesting about him specifically, almost like a red herring a little bit. But as it relates to the other folks, they not only had a plan and a goal, but they also had the means in order to be able to execute so that they can, reach those goals. And that a lot had to do with their mentality as it really, because I know Everett and we were talking about how, you have I'm a try people and I'm gonna do people. And when you hit a certain bracket, you notice that there's I'm doing this, I'm doing that, as opposed to I would hope this, I'm gonna try that, I would like this. And that can't be your language, right? You have to, when you're trying to go get something, you have to go get it. And that's what we were saying earlier when we talk about that hustle mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely piggyback on that and just say, and unfortunately, that's a lot of the times how things are when you're not necessarily sure for sure how that's going to work out, right? Like, so you hoping for the best. We hoping that this money that we save up is going to get there. I'm hoping that, you know what I'm saying, I get this apartment building and everything kind of covers up, and that'll be able to take care of the household income that I want and be able to, provide my child with, maybe education that they need. So definitely some of the different things that we saw within that regard. And I also noticed too when we talk about the taxes for one of the individuals, a lady at the end, she definitely said, like, hey, I felt like, my taxes were too high, you know what I mean? And that sucks for a lot of individuals, who are trying to get ahead. And that's what we mean about the earned income versus, say, the earned income versus a passive income. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of reference those 2 things, and also pretty much how most of the people who, and it's crazy to say this, but yeah, but most of the people who were married in these situations, aside from the women who were like recently divorced, were relatively all in a pretty happy place. And I don't necessarily, and I just want to draw this distinction because sometimes I talk to some of my friends and I'm like, I don't know if it's a byproduct of the marriage or is it more so the byproduct of the thought of them wanting to have a family and them having that family and them making a commitment to sticking with that family. You understand what I'm saying? Like, because I think a lot of times we see people who have, children and could have a family structure, if you will, but you know what I'm saying, the commitment to being together and being a family isn't always there. But I think if you see someone making those commitments on a day-to-day basis, making that, you know what I'm saying, work, a lot of times you would like to believe that some individuals will be able to say, you know what, this, even though we might not be where we want to be, this is enough for us to kind of get to where we're trying to get to. And hopefully what we've seen from most of the people, and I'm referring that to the guy that was maybe a 53, he wasn't where he wants to be, but he felt like he was happy and he was getting there, versus the other individuals that were married, you know what I'm saying, they actually were where they would like to have been. And they're working on getting to other places and getting other people free, you know what I'm saying, and being a blessing to others, whether it was giving the car to the kid, you know what I'm saying, or trying to, retire the family, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to draw that connection as well.
Yeah. So with that being said, I don't know if Malik had anything he wanted to add, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into our Black business of the month, and that is observermade. Is it net? I think it is. But you guys check it out. They are it's a Black owned business. It's also woman owned. Shout out to Karen Foltz. She was a former professor for all three of us when we were in law school. She has her own clothing line. It's workout attire, specifically more so geared to those who run. It's very lightweight, comfortable, stuff like that. It's called Observer May. It's really nice. They're cute, or I don't want to say cute for everybody because everybody don't like that word, but it's nice. The clothes are nice. They look comfortable. They have breathability and all that jazz. So make sure you go ahead and check them out and get you some stuff, especially if you're trying to, it's March. A lot of people I know done fell off with the gym, but if you want to get back running, go ahead and hit her up. Go ahead and get some of that apparel. So give you some motivation to get back working out. One other thing I also wanted to touch on is our book of the month, our Black book of the month. That is Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. It's a book that definitely need to read. Talks about social justice and economics amongst the Black community and how we can help to build ourselves. Starts out by teaching us different things that we may not necessarily see as it relates to social justice and economics, and so how we can evolve around some of the problems that we have within the diaspora. So go ahead and make sure you check that book out too.
Thanks, Sam. I got the motivational minute this week for us. I have a quote by Dennis Whaley. There are two primary choices in life: to accept conditions as they exist or accept the responsibility for changing them, right? So I think this quote speaks to, what we're talking about with all the people with their different income levels, their lifestyles, family units, and all the choices they make in their life. You have the choice to accept the responsibility for how things are currently existing, or you can change them. As long as you're still alive, you can change them. The people that we analyzed in these two articles about the men and women, they both made choices, right? The men made choices, the women made choices, and they're either choosing to change them or they're inspiring to change them, and they're doing different things to get to that goal. So I think that speaks to what we went over today, and it was a good quote by Dennis Whaley. So I appreciate that. So y'all guys have any other comments, final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I don't think I have anything other than, just make sure you try to make the right choices. Make sure that the choices that you make about not just finances, but your lifestyle, that they're informed. And although life is going to get thrown at you, however it gets thrown at you, you want to try to make sure you make the best choices for you so that you don't find yourself in a harder situation than you need to be in. So just be mindful and try to find your best way out. That's what I got.
Yeah, I would just go ahead and add my final thoughts is that, again, to Sam's point, definitely be mindful of what you are. Also be considerate to understanding that sometimes you can go farther with others than you could by yourself. So be selective and rich who you choose to be with, and make sure that that's someone that can be on the same type of programming with you further down the line, so that you guys can make a commitment, even if you guys may maybe grow and maybe have different personality traits and things of that nature. But if you guys ultimately have a goal that you guys feel like is lofty enough that you guys want to work towards, I think that that's something that should be able to keep you guys together enough to strive to, achieve those things as you grow. So that's what I would like to say. And I think that's everything. You guys can check out all of our socials at the end of this, and catch us on What's Up Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on Wednesdays, Eastern Standard.
On IG Live.
All right, guys. Thank you for having us. We appreciate you. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Yeah.
We are out.
Peace.